You ever noticed how the word lie makes everyone uncomfortable? We all hate liars until we remember that we've all lied too. Maybe not big, world-ending lies, but the small ones. The "I'm fine" when you weren't. The "I'm almost there" when you hadn't even left. Those tiny edits of reality that somehow became part of being human. And that's what we're diving into today. Not to shame anyone, but to understand something deeper. Because science says lying isn't just a bad habit, it's part of our nature. I remember the first time I lied and got caught. I was maybe 7. I told my mother I hadn't eaten the cookies cooling on the table. My face said otherwise, chocolate around my mouth like evidence from a crime scene. She didn't get angry. She just smiled and said, "Next time, tell the truth." But that moment stuck with me, because even at that age, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was protecting myself. And that's where the story of lying begins. Not in adulthood, not even in teenage rebellion, but in early childhood. Psychologists at the University of Toronto ran an experiment that changed how we understand lying in children. They placed a toy behind a child, told them not to peek, and left the room. Hidden cameras recorded what happened next. Almost all the kids looked. And when the researcher came back and asked, "Did you peek?" most said no. Here's the twist. The smarter the child, the more likely they were to lie. Lying, it turns out, isn't a sign of bad character. It's a sign of cognitive development. It shows that a child has learned theory of mind, the ability to understand that someone else has thoughts and beliefs different from your own. So from the very start, lying isn't evil. It's a marker of intelligence. It's our brain practicing survival. Fast forward thousands of years, humans have evolved language, culture, and society. But our need to deceive, it evolved with us. Anthropologists say lying gave early humans an edge. Think about it. In prehistoric tribes, survival wasn't just about strength, it was about cooperation. Being able to manipulate information, even a little, could help you gain status, avoid conflict, or form alliances. There's even a theory called the social brain hypothesis, which says our brains got bigger not to build tools, but to handle the complexity of social life, and deception was part of that. Our ancestors who could manage secrets and subtle lies often survived better in groups. So when we lie today, in job interviews, on dating apps, or just to make peace, we're echoing a survival skill that's thousands of years old. But what makes us do it now? What makes an honest person hide behind a small lie? Let's look at the science. Neuroscientists at University College London used fMRI scans to study the brain during lies. They found something incredible. Every time you lie, a part of your brain called the amygdala reacts. That's the region that deals with guilt and emotion. The first lie? The amygdala lights up like fireworks. You feel it, the guilt, the anxiety. But as you keep lying, the response weakens. It's like emotional numbing. The more we lie, the easier it becomes. That's why little lies can grow. They don't stay little because our brains adjust. That's how white lies turn into full stories. In 1996, psychologist Paul Ekman, who devoted his life to studying deception, made an important discovery. He found that lies often leak through micro-expressions, those tiny facial movements that last less than a second. Even when someone is trained to lie, the truth flashes across their face, fear, guilt, or surprise, before they regain control. Ekman's work inspired everything from airport security techniques to the TV show Lie to Me. But his conclusion wasn't what people expected. He said, lying is a cooperative act. What he meant was, for a lie to work, someone has to believe it. So when we lie, we're not just deceiving, we're dancing with trust. Let's step into history for a moment. Imagine ancient Egypt. Around 1300 BCE, they believed your heart would be weighed against the feather of truth in the afterlife. If your heart was heavy with lies, you'd be devoured by a monster called Ammit. Even then, people understood that lies carried a moral and emotional weight. But fast forward to the modern world, where we lie to protect feelings, keep peace, or even build confidence. One 2002 study by psychologist Bella DePaulo found that the average person lies once or twice a day. Most of those lies aren't criminal, they're social. Things like, "You look great," or "I loved your cooking." Harmless, right? Except, over time, those lies shape our relationships. They create invisible walls, small distances between the version of ourselves we show and who we really are. I once met a man named Arif, a friend of a friend, who worked as a corporate manager. He told me he lived two lives. At work, he was confident, decisive, powerful. At home, he said, "I feel like a fraud." He admitted that most of his confidence came from small lies, pretending to understand reports he hadn't read, smiling when he wanted to quit. He said lying made his career possible, but it also made him feel hollow. That's the quiet price of deception. Every lie builds a world we have to live in, and sometimes that world becomes a prison. But before we judge, let's look at the other side, the science of why honesty feels good. In 2012, a Notre Dame study asked people to avoid lying for 10 weeks. No white lies, no exaggerations. By the end, participants reported lower stress levels and better relationships. It wasn't just moral, it was biological. Honesty reduces the stress hormone cortisol and boosts serotonin, chemicals that make us feel calm and connected. Telling the truth literally feels lighter. Still, the truth is complicated. Sometimes honesty can hurt. Imagine a doctor who knows a terminal patient has days left. Do they tell them bluntly, or do they soften it? In those moments, the line between compassion and deception blurs. Philosopher Immanuel Kant said lying is always wrong, no matter what. But psychologists today know reality is messier. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is lie just enough to protect someone's hope. So maybe the real question isn't why we lie, but when it's okay. The irony is lying has built both destruction and progress. Wars were started with lies, but so were movements, dreams, and love stories. A person pretending to be brave might become brave. A person lying about who they are might one day grow into that identity. Lying is human, not because we're wicked, but because we're complex. We live between truth and survival, between kindness and authenticity. And every day we choose which version of reality to tell. Let's bust the myth once and for all. Lying isn't just a moral flaw, it's a feature of human evolution, psychology, and society. From the child who denies eating cookies to the leader who hides a mistake, lying is a reflection of something deeper, our desire to belong, to be accepted, to survive. But here's the secret the science also tells us: truth has a gravity of its own. It always finds its way back, because no matter how skilled we become at bending reality, the human heart craves connection, and connection only thrives in truth. So maybe the goal isn't to stop lying altogether. Maybe it's to become aware of why we do it. To notice those moments when we edit reality and ask ourselves, is it fear, pride, or kindness driving this? Because understanding why we lie might just be the most honest thing we ever do. If you found this story eye-opening, take a moment. Think about the last time you lied. What were you protecting? Yourself or someone else? That question, more than anything, reveals the science and the soul of why we all lie.